In this lesson, we will learn how to choose a rotation order that will help prevent gimbal lock issues. Gimbal lock is caused by two of our rotate constraint rings overlapping each other, causing us to lose control in one axis. What we'll do is go ahead and take a look at the problem of gimbal lock in this lesson, how this can be a problem to an animated character, and then we'll take a look at how to prevent it from happening by simply switching our rotate order. Now, I would like to say that by just simply changing the rotate order isn't necessarily going to eliminate gimbal lock altogether, but it will help us make great strides towards preventing gimbal lock. So let's go ahead and take a look at the problem of gimbal lock. We'll go ahead and grab our center of gravity. This would be a great control to test out here because this is going to rotate a lot in animation. If your character needs to do a flip or run around in your scene, you can understand why this would be a great control to change the rotation order of. Just to make sure, again, that animators can comfortably pose their characters and polish their animations without having to run into these issues. Now, by default, each object has a rotate order of X, Y, Z. We can take a look at that by going to our attribute editor. We'll press Control A. Let's go to our first tab here, the transform node of the object, and take a look. The rotate order here is X, Y, Z. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the problem of using X, Y, Z at times for complex rotations. I'll go ahead and hold down the E key and the left mouse button, and what we'll do is go ahead and switch our rotate mode to gimbal. Again, this shows us the true orientation of this object. Now let's go ahead and twist the character in the y-axis. Instantly you'll see that we lose control in our tilt axis, the Z. You can see it overlaps the x-axis. Now if we try to animate tilting at this point, we'd get a lot of flipping. To see this clearly, let's go ahead and undo back. We'll switch back to local mode, and we'll add some animation. We'll go to frame 1. Let's press Shift-E to set rotate keys. We'll now go to frame 10, and let's go ahead and rotate our character in the y-axis again. Again, we'll press Shift-E. Let's create just one more pose on frame 20, and we'll now tilt the character back in the z-axis. You can see in local mode, it looks like we can rotate in the z just fine. It's a little bit misleading in that sense. Let's go ahead and rotate him back. And again, we'll press Shift-E to lock down rotate keys. Now, as we scrub from 20 to 10, you can see we have this type of wobbly action. That's because of gimbal lock. And that's just a small example of why this would be a problem. A major example would be if we tried to animate a flip and the character's center just kind of did what it was not supposed to do. It just kind of wigged out and flipped in a random direction. That's because Maya is trying to correct that rotation problem. So this is the limitation with XYZ. Not to say that we shouldn't use this, but a lot of times we might want to change it. Again, if we're dealing with more complex rotations, we can most certainly choose something better than XYZ. So let's go ahead and take a look at another choice we can use. What I'll do is go ahead and remove the animation here, at least on frame 10 and on frame 20, because once we switch our rotate order, you'll notice that the character's rotation is going to change. Alright, so just to make sure that this does not happen, we can always just go in and remove our keys. Let's go ahead and hold down Shift, and we'll drag from 10 to 20 to grab both keys. We'll now right-click and choose Delete. Okay, great. What I like to use for, let's say, the torso, even for arms and legs, is ZXY, and we'll take a look at exactly why this is a pretty good choice. So once we've set the center of gravity to that, let's go ahead and switch back over to gimbal mode and take a look at what happens now when we rotate in our y-axis. You can see that now we do have control in our tilt axis. We can comfortably rotate in our z-axis. Well, how is this possible? Let's go ahead and understand exactly how this order works. So in this order, ZXY, what this means is that Z is going to be controlled by both X and Y. So as we start to move in Y, you can see that the Y handle is also going to drive the X, and it of course drives the Z. So this lets us know then that the X-axis is going to control the Z-axis. And the Y-axis, of course, that as the main driver of the other two. So you kind of want to test your controls out this way and figure out, all right, what's going to be the best option, because it's not always going to be ZXY. At times I've used XZY. It really depends on the animation. But I find that ZXY is a really good starting point. So let's go ahead and redo that animation. We'll go ahead and switch back to local mode. And we'll go ahead and rotate our character in the Y-axis and press Shift-E on frame 10. Now, let's go ahead and tilt him back in the Z-axis on 20, and we'll press Shift-E. You'll see that we now have a very clean rotation. No longer does the character wobble, which is super cool. So again, that's just a look at the importance of working with the Rotate Order tool in Maya. Again, it's a great way to prevent weird flipping issues. There are also other ways we can do so. If you don't manage to change your rotate order and you'd still like to correct a flipping issue, you could always work with the Euler filter and the graph editor. If you'd like to learn more about that, feel free to take a look at our Introduction to Animation course in Maya. But now that we have an idea of how to change our rotate order, we can always go in and start to change this on each control. So, for example, our chest, we might want to do the same thing here. Just go ahead and set this to ZXY. We can do the same thing for our back control, for the pelvis. And again, I find that this works very well for controls like the arms in IK mode and for the legs as well. But if you're dealing with FK controls, you might, again, just test out your rotate order and see what would be best. Maybe it's not ZXY. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the legs and go ahead and switch this to the rotate order that we've decided on. There we go. And we'll go ahead and do this for the last control here for the arm. Feel free to do that for the head control if you feel it's necessary. It may not be. Sometimes you might be able to just go ahead and work in XYZ space. So it, again, really depends on what you're animating. If you find that your control is kind of flipping out, you might just decide to change this order to get some better results.